An imposing young Oread is surrounded by a crowd of crusaders who are hanging on to her every word. I hope this example clearly illustrates the difference between the Jiska legionnaires from the last war and the crusaders. The perfection of form and spirit they were imbued with during creation turned them into parts of a well-balanced war machine, not a ragtag bunch of individuals, but a united whole. Now tell me again why I'm supposed to be impressed by your reckless assaults, where everyone is fighting for their ego and for the right to beat their peers to a swift but pointless heroic sacrifice. Some of the crusaders grumble unhappily, but it is clear that they are captivated by the woman's words. The only exception is a scraggly, disheveled halfling monk whose puffy black eye gives him away as a brawler and a troublemaker. He enthusiastically pushes forward and tries to engage, but one of his friends swiftly jabs him in the back of an elbow, making the poor fellow pause to catch his breath. We're gonna quietly listen. One of the crusaders angrily curls his fist tightly and retorts with a burst of passion. If those gists of yours or whatever had come for us, we'd have their guts for garters. You think we've never fought a mighty adversary before? The soldier's stern facade cannot fully conceal his relish. He clearly plans to enjoy this confrontation. The crusaders around him look upon their exotic opponent with a mixture of irritation and piqued interest. The woman chuckles before cutting off her interlocutor. I would love to see you storm a 60-foot tall walking castle shaped like a gigantic elephant that carries siege fortifications on its back. And I'll have you know, those fortifications were defended by Jiskins, priest craftsmen armed with demon-bound war machines. They use the enemies you cannot defeat as mindless weapons. The woman gives the people around her a triumphant look and adjusts her clothes with a pointed nonchalance. Her voice takes on a lecturer's tone. You should not argue with someone who happens to be the most authoritative researcher on the history of warfare 3,000 years before the foundation of Absalom. The woman looks at you and flashes an amused smile. The lecture is over. Do you, my esteemed listeners, have any questions? So who are you? I'm Indara, a warrior, magus, and a scholar of classical warfare from the Garand. The woman peers at you apprehensively, then sighs. I must admit I am mildly offended by the fact that my name is entirely unfamiliar to you, but I'm willing to accept that this is due to Avastan's isolation from the sophisticated culture of the world at large. You've come a long way to be here. I'd like to think of myself as an inhabitant of Galorian. I don't narrowly identify with any country in particular. So why did you come here? To witness a legendary war, the confrontation between denizens of a plain famous for its love of violence and the crusaders from every continent united by the common goal of defending their home, an epic struggle of colossal proportions. That hasn't been particularly epic so far, truth be told. The monk with the black eye grins and mutters under his breath, maybe she just can't see it from here. The view will get way more epic if she stops hiding among us and takes a walk outside. The woman smirks contemptuously. She does not deem the monk's words worthy of a comment. I disagree. The Crusaders are doing a commendable job at resisting the demons. Ah, yes. The situation we have found ourselves in can attest to that. But then again, demons are no better. Their preferred strategy also involves brute strength, mindless assault, and unfounded confidence in their superiority. So why don't you join the Crusaders? Show them how the fighting should be done. No, I'm a historian, an analyst, a theorist. Do you know what these three words have in common? They describe a mortal woman who does not participate in the conflict upon which her thesis will be founded. But then again, I will hardly be able to describe this mess as anything other than a feeble likeness of the last war of Gistka. The monk with the damaged eye grins slyly and comments that more dangerous the upcoming scuffle is, the more motivated we are to find clever and pretty words to justify not actually doing the fighting. What is this last war you mentioned? The last war of the Gistka, of course, a large-scale conflict that took place 3,000 years before the foundation of Absalom. It was a war against the Assyrian pharaoh of Forgotten Plagues, the war that ended the legendary Gistka Imperium. An epic struggle that became the most vibrant page in military history. Alas, all conflicts that followed it were but a pale shadow, including the one I am witnessing here. So why do you find it so inspiring? Imagine legions of golems imbued with the extraplanar spirits marching into battle. Imagine flying cities that swoop out of the clouds like a terrifying monstrous birds of prey to drop forces onto the enemy castles. Picture gigantic mechanisms powered by captive and very angry demons and devils. Imagine standing in the warpath of walking citadels, or having to cover your ears to block out the sound of cannons loaded with shrieking elementals. Finally, imagine the ultimate weapon that defeated the Jiska, the deadly night plague. This affliction was an attack dog, a trained epidemic, a tamed pestilence, striking only those who its masters wanted to kill. Imagine all these terrors and understand that no flight of fancy can even come close to the horrors of the nightmares that they made real. So how do you know so much? I can say, without false modesty, that there is no more authoritative researcher on Golarion when it comes to the history of warfare 3,000 years before the foundation of Absalom. I've dedicated my whole life to this subject. I personally visited old battlefields and studied the most mysterious and forbidden archives containing chronicles of ancient wars, sometimes risking my life in the process. I saw a fallen sky of the Shori Empire with my own eyes. I ripped out the control crystal from an exterminator-class combat golem that guarded a Jiska laboratory with my own hands. These fingers held the glass flask that the servants of the Pharaoh of the Forgotten Plagues used to create the first generation of pestilence that devastated the Jiska Imperium. How do I know so much? I saw and touched everything I'm telling you about. By the way, you're wrong to treat the Crusaders with such disdain. A debate? Oh, I will be happy to prove that the current conflict can't hold a candle to the last war. The whole purpose of a debate, though, is to debate, right? I say something, you say something, and then we have a conversation about it. We learn from each other. We show each other our perspectives and points of view and stuff like that. And while there is generally a quote-unquote victor if you're doing it as a competitive kind of thing, more often than not, a good debate isn't one that, you know, something has to be proven on or anything. Like it's a good conversation, right? I like a good debate because it allows us, like me and somebody else or whoever, to have a really good conversation and to learn from each other. And that's always what I think at the foundation of a debate it should be, is learning and growth and stuff. And I just think it's interesting that this is the perspective this person is coming at it from. I'm going to prove to you that this conflict isn't, you know, anything like the last war. And it's just an interesting, for somebody that's so scholarly and so well learned and everything like that. They're not coming at it from a place of wanting to learn more, wanting to hear somebody else's perspective. They're here wanting to lecture you and show you how good they are at literally everything. Very well. The last war of the Jiska was waged using a significantly greater number of troops. Both sides actively relied on reinforcements from allied planes, and their strategic planning was perfected through no fewer than 7 rounds of intensive design. None of the above applies to this war of yours. Compared to the Jiska, we are but stone club wielding kobolds. I would like to conclude my thesis with a few words of wise counsel from Dagon, an advisor to the Pharaoh of the Forgotten Plagues. I doubt you will comprehend the true genius of a statement, but here it is nevertheless. A gadfly sees the ox pays no heed to the gadfly, but crimson fever takes them both. I mean, it's so funny. I mentioned this the last time too, that the true genius of this statement, but like you won't understand it. I mean, it's a pretty basic one, right? The gadfly sees the ox doesn't really pay it any attention because it's nothing more than a fly, but gadfly has crimson fever, bites the ox, and now they're both sick with it. And then so on and so forth, depending on like what the ox does and everything like that. It can infect other things, and then it spreads. So let's see. So we have world knowledge 15, diplomacy. We got it no matter what. Okay, so let's see what our 2 options are. The events of the past are shrouded in legend, but the fate of the world is being decided here and now. That is what you fail to grasp. Or the principles of war are always the same. Weapons, causes, and resources may change, but the foundation remains immutable. Diplomacy, I think I mentioned this last time too, is my favorite option. The events of the past are shrouded in legend, but the fate of the world is being decided here and now. So the whole thing is, right, the past, she said that this war was fought 3,000 years before the founding of Absalom, right? So this is a long time ago. All of this is secondhand accounting, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th generation. You know what I mean? Like, this is a long time in between. You don't know who or what or how it all really happened. You're going off of, you know, stories and legends, and you're not there witnessing it for yourself right now. For all we know, the last war was equally as quote unquote boring. as this war was, but those that won made it into something more exciting and grand than anybody could imagine in stories, because you know, you want to embellish, especially as the victors write their history. They want to make themselves look good. They want to make the whole war look good. They want to make it look like they did a lot, even if they did, you know, next to nothing kind of thing. We don't know. We weren't there. Succeeded. The earnestness on the face of those around you has taken away Indara's panache, encouraging her to backtrack and stumble over her words. Of course, I'm not trying to diminish the importance of current events. What I'm trying to say is that from the standpoint of history, and particularly the history of warfare, she falls silent, fixedly staring at the unfriendly eyes of her audience. The true importance of these developments won't become obvious until later. This backtracking is legendary. This backtracking is so good. Indara offers a pretentious dismissal. As a scholar, I cannot deny that there is a certain truth beneath your skeptical statement. History is a complex discipline rooted in fact and evidentiary basis that grow ever more meager the farther the described period from the present moment, which we're talking like 3,000 years plus. That's a long time ago. I mean, honestly, I don't even know at this point in the game's history if you can trust the accounting of like the start of the crusade in a lot of ways, because it was 100 years ago. Right? There's only a select few that actually remember it for what it was. The queen being one, and you know she'll spin a story to benefit her however she can kind of thing. So you can't really trust her word at it. And which is really interesting to think about, that this war has been so long in the making, and it's lasted and lasted, that there's barely anybody alive, if anybody, that really remembers it for what it was at the time, you know? And I do like it though, that Indara uses so many words and is so flowery with her verbiage and everything like that. And here comes Abby with like, what is that? Is that literally 2 sentences? And like just completely just destroys her whole argument. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Of course, if I were to argue in bad faith, the way Crusaders embellish their tales of slaying a single brimrack by adding a dozen Balers, for example, I could win this debate, but I am above such things, and therefore I am forced to admit your skepticism is not entirely without merit. And then I do like the second option. I'm sure you would have been able to expound your argument in a longer discussion, because you don't want to let her save face necessarily, but I always like to be the bigger person in this instance, where you're at the point now where if you wanted to be like her or like somebody similar, you could grind this argument into the dust, right? You could then hop on to whatever train of thought you want to, and you could start spouting off your own series of stuff and make yourself look so good as far as like knowledge goes. But I don't know. I don't like that. I think that Abby made her point, and she's going to walk away, because I think that makes a bigger statement on who Abby is than anything else. Indara nods with obvious relief. I'm glad we both understand this limitation. It's always a pleasure to face a worthy opponent, even if the debate takes place in a grimy tavern, perhaps especially because of that. Once again, not seeing the point of a good debate isn't necessarily having an opponent, but learning and gaining knowledge from somebody else and having a good discussion. Indara unbuckles her sword belt and hands you the weapon. This is a worthy blade. It will be of use not only for the strong, but also for the wise. And this is where I bid you farewell. Before the end of the day, I was planning to observe how winged demons use pack tactics to drive their prey like herds of livestock. It's about time I got back to my research. The hint of a smile graces Indara's lips when she sees the disappointment in the eyes of many crusaders. Stay safe. And there she goes. And now we have one of my favorite swords in the game, because there's fire, and I'm going to give it to Sela. Yeah, we'll give it to Sela. That was a good debate though. Or I guess I should say that was a good storyline quest. Like I enjoyed that a lot actually. All right, let's go. Do we talk to Ember next? You know what? I said we were going to save Ulbrich for last. We'll save Ulbrich for... He's right there. I thought we're going to say hi to Ember first. Mm-hmm. The elf in front of you is young, still adolescent by the standards of their long-lived folk. A childish, carefree smile plays on her face, and her wandering eyes linger on you for just a moment before darting off again into the distance. Terrible scars cover her body, and a few of her fingers are missing. A crow sits on her shoulder, observing you with its clever black eyes. You're always so cheerful. How do you manage to remain so hopeful when we're surrounded by such horror? Hope? Her head tilts She tilts her head and continues with a smile. No. Hope is a lie. I love Ember so much. Hope? No. That's a lie. Don't think that I'm so hopeful. Kind of thing. I love her. What should we hope for? This world is in the hands of demons. The gods can't help or they don't want to. Or they forgot about us altogether. The people know they're about to be eaten by demons, but still they quarrel with each other and fight and steal. There is no hope, only us. We'll have to win without hope. It'll be hard and the entire abyss is against us. We can only win by some miracle, which means we'll have to make one happen. What other choice do we have? We'll work a miracle and win, because we have to. The elf smiles broadly and nods to herself. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what the Desnans were mentioning too. And how, like, you have to sometimes make your own luck. And that's what Desna is a fan of, is people that recognize an opportunity and put in the hard work beforehand and during and create their own luck and make things happen. And this is basically what Ember is saying. And I like that you kind of keep seeing that motif floating through. Okay, so let's talk to Darren next. The Defender's Heart is a splendid choice for the Crusade outpost. The very sight of these walls brings back fond memories of drinks and revels. The drinks were really good, by the way. People say that you're deliberately trying Queen Galfrey's patience. Is that true? Does it even matter? All of Mendevian society has declared war on me. They either despise me or are trying to steer me back onto the right path. And I'm doing everything in my power to keep them on their toes. I relish the prospect of all the fun this mess in Canabras will bring. Darren grins from ear to ear. I shall either commission a song about the great Canabras fiasco from a certain talented bard, or confuse the jewelers with a rather tall order. A batch of silver dragon toys with detachable heads. Give me a week and they'll be in every shop in the capital. You should make it sure it's really easy to rip off the wings of your dragon trinket as well. Kids are gonna love it. Darren laughs. So be it. From now on, you are my muse. Abby, we can't flirt with this man, Abby. Down, girl. But still, it's so much fun. Hey, Darren, what made you want to join with us? You mean instead of carousing far away from Canabras with a small army of mercenaries to protect me? I will get to that. You see, when you appeared at my door out of nowhere, awash with bravery and heroism, and started tossing demons around like ragdolls, I thought that your company might be more exciting than my usual crowd of sycophantic hangovers. You seemed competent and mysterious at the same time. So I decided that a little demon hunting wouldn't hurt, especially with such an intriguing entourage. That party's been growing staler with every passing second anyways. Needless to say, I'm not here for long. I shall return to the capital, or even one of my country estates, as soon as we reclaim the city. Crusades, bellowing commanders, row upon row of identical tents. This is not the life for me, but I will certainly remember you and our adventures together for a week, perhaps even longer than that. I'll see you later, Darren. Y'all, he's gonna remember us for at least a week. Maybe. If we're lucky. If we're lucky, maybe 2 weeks. Will just gives you a friendly wave. Hey, Chief, want to talk? Have we already done, or is there no like intro? I guess we'll come back and do the one-lines. I kind of only want to do like the quick one-lines with them now, and then we'll learn more like as we go, because I feel like the last time I just read through it all really quick, and I want to spread it out more. Camellia looks at you over, pensively toying with the snake-shaped bone amulet that dangles from her pale neck. Noticing your glance, she flashes you a cool, barely there smile. Greetings. It seems for a moment that she wants to say something else, but then pauses. The pause grows too long, and she slips back into cautious silence. You're much more relaxed during combat. Your battle cries are uninhibited. She blushes slightly and lowers her eyes. So you've noticed. To be honest, I find it embarrassing. You see, being a shaman means having a spirit of battle as my ever-present companions. In the heat of combat, they become rather, vocal. Your amulet's unusual. Where'd you get it? Ah, my little trinket. It's so nice of you to notice. But I assure you, this amulet is nothing but a bauble. Can a lady not be drawn to beautiful things? Okay. Sure. You know what? We'll let you have it. Okay. Here he is, the man of the hour, Ulbrig! Oh, hey there, just the last I want to talk to you. To your health, by the way. Ulbrig sips from his beer mug. And I asked around about this here city, and about the whole hubbub. Who you lot are fighting and why, and the more I hear, the less I understand. So no hopia, huh? He chuckles. You pulled my leg good there, I'll give you that. The rest of these city folk are no better. They told me things that made my head spin. Everyone from the tavern keeper to a knight is giving me the same hokum. They all say Sarkoris was burned to the ground by a bunch of Oglins 100 years ago, and Canabras, that godforsaken village the size of a pig snout, was turned into a massive fortress to defend against him, which means I must have slept for 100 years and didn't notice a thing. So what am I to make of this? Am I the barmy one, or is it everyone else? Or maybe we've all been bewitched by Fae and are living in the yarn they're spinning. Talk about a doozy. All right. So we'll ask him about stuff later, but I gotta go. Soft grass underfoot to you. All right. Oh, Nenio. Was Nenio the last one? Whoops, Ulbrich was not, in fact. Girl, I am pleased with you. I asked you to bring me to safety, and that's exactly what you did. Indeed, having a follower to aid me is most efficient and frankly pleasing. With you on hand, I shall conquer new horizons, plumb the depths of knowledge, hereto unknown, and scale the dizzying heights of future discoveries. Nenio stops to catch her breath. What I mean, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude. I foresee immense potential in our future cooperation. I was happy to help. Hand in hand, we will unravel the greatest mysteries inaccessible to the minds of ordinary people. Just imagine it. I, leading the way, proudly staring into the faces of the gods themselves, and you, my loyal follower, walking behind me every step of the way, writing down my deepest thoughts and admiring the profundity of my intellect. If we hold hands, you won't be able to go in front of me and lead the way. You are the catalyst which, when it reacts with my intellect, will allow the latter to grasp the very essence of the universe itself. Where do you always express your delight so effusively? What? Who are you? Nenio stares at you for a while, bewilderment in her eyes, but then it's replaced by recognition. Ah, yes, my new follower. So what am I supposed to do? Oh, yes, I must provide some verbal encouragement for your as yet modest achievements and try to induce you to strive for more such encouragement. That is the principle of that underpins any training. She frowns, but only for a moment. Ah, I see. Your modest nature was unsettled by the overabundance of my gratitude. I do apologize for putting you in such an awkward position. I will never praise you again unless I forget. But let's get back to the business at hand. Your new assignment will be to take me to the inconspicuous ruins that are located in an even more inconspicuous valley lying between Canabras and Dresden as soon as reasonably practical. I will mark the place on your map with a large red cross so you won't forget. What's so special about these ruins? I'm glad you asked. This is my greatest hypothesis, my secret project, and I won't pass up the opportunity to share it with you because you are my most loyal follower and you are worthy of possessing such knowledge. Nenio rubs her nose. Also because you're the first person to ever ask me about it. Some time ago, I was walking around the border of the World Wound and I met a strange person. He was wearing a frayed gray robe and his face was hidden behind an odd white mask. Of course, I didn't miss the opportunity to ask him about the reasons for his absurd appearance. Do you know what he said to me? He said, I am the answer, but what is the question? And then walked off in the direction of the World Wound. The next day, after I'd already forgotten about the first encounter, I had another similar encounter. This time I met an elven woman, judging by the pointy ears sticking out from behind the mask. I am the answer, but what is the question, she said, before taking offward towards the World Wound. And then I realized everything became clearer to me. I know a mystery when I see one. Consider this one of my many talents. Nenio rubs the tip of her nose. After all these geysers weren't simply on their way to a costume party, were they? After examining several maps, I determined that they were all heading in one direction, to a place not far from Canabras, a place which is marked as the Nameless Ruins, even on ancient Sarkorian maps. That is where I need to go. Unraveling the secret of that place will be my greatest discovery. It will secure my place in history, perhaps even in legend. Okay. How do you know where we have to go, Nenio? Do you know how to find a beehive in a forest? You need to catch 2 bees, set them free in 2 different locations in the forest, and remember the directions they fly in. Then you take a map, draw a line showing the bees' routes, and then place where the lines intersect will mark the location of the beehive. Fascinating, yes? By the way, forest bees do not make any honey. I use the beehive principle here too. For a couple of months, I tracked the strange people in masks and observed the direction in which they were traveling. I collected coordinates, mapped their estimated routes, made discovery. All the routes intersected at the Nameless Ruins not far from Canabras. So what do you expect to find? I haven't the slightest idea. If I knew what was hidden there, I wouldn't be so eager to go. She brings up a good point. Okay. You know, these ruins of yours may turn out to be just that, right? Ruins, nothing else there. Nenio shrugs. In that case, we'll write out this experiment as a failure and start another one. I don't know which experiment I'll try next. Okay, that's all I wanted to know, Nenio. Well, now you know, so off you go, Nenio frowns. Did I just make a rhyme? Perhaps I've discovered a poetic talent. Let's conduct an experiment. Quickly, say any word and I'll find a rhyme for it. Anyways, science. That's when thinkers make alliance. Intellectual defiance. Not the best rhymes, don't you think? Well, this experiment was unsuccessful. We learned that I have no poetic talent after all. Nenio sighs. But it's no reason to despair. Having a gift of poetry in addition to my inexhaustible intelligence would have been a little too much. Besides, I am catastrophically busy and have no time to spend writing poetry. Okay, I gotta go, Nenio. Thank you for the chat. Nenio produces a crumpled piece of paper from her sleeve and takes some notes. This conversation lasted approximately 5 minutes. She lifts her chin. By the way, did you know that this is the exact amount of time the Inquisitor of Canabras needs to find a defendant guilty? But to shake off Inquisitors chasing you takes 5 times as long. That experiment proved that running while clad in heavy armor is not burdensome for them at all. Honestly, the Nenio conversations are so good. They literally make my life. They're so, so good. Okay, let's, I think, get some sleep real quick. We'll let everybody rest. I don't think anybody's really fatigued, but it couldn't hurt. Also, let's quickly place this stuff. Stop leaving those gifts. What Kian said. But if you didn't watch my last playthrough, I collect all the books. Don't ask me why. I just do. I always have. I love collecting the books in this game. So that's why they're all going in there instead of being sold. Because I don't know if I'm going to need them or not. All right. And then we'll get some sleep.